Yes, thank you for bringing me in. I have been waiting a while for my opportunity to come in to connect. I know that you were interested in connecting with me a long time ago, so I have been patiently waiting to be able to have this opportunity to connect with you today. It is true. I was a real person, even though my more spiritual name was Buddha. I was a prince and I was um, protected within my family's compound. We were very lucky in terms of prosperity. We had everything we wanted. However, my parents and the elders in the community were very cautious and afraid of the outside world. And so there were big walls protecting us. And with our castle, that wasn't a castle, but it was a castle. Our protection was a very big border, and we had many families and other. It was like a community within our perimeter of the grounds that we lived. So it was quite a large land mass. Um, and so I grew up, and my parents were very protective of me. It was forbidden to go outside of the walls of our protection. And so this led me to be very curious. There was outside the walls of our perimeter was other communities, quite a lot of other communities that were just beyond the walls. And it was part of my curiosity as a young, rebellious as such, and sort of bored. I felt I was being somewhat held captive. I had already explored every nook and cranny of our family's property, and I wanted to explore out. And so I did sneak out a few times because I wanted the freedom to explore. Um, the reason why my parents protected me so much was because there was other type of kingdoms that were close as well, that had ongoing, like a long time battles, and were trying to disempower each other. My parents were more peaceful. My parents just wanted the protection. We did have an army of sorts that could protect us if there was an invasion, but the walls, it was literal big walls to protect us from any invaders. So it locked out the outside world and locked us in. And I did have friends who would come and work for us on the property who actually lived outside of the walls. I was led to believe there was nothing outside of the walls when I was much younger. I was led to believe that this was the world and it was a safe world. It was a nurturing world, but it was a limited world for me. And so I was raised with very fine teachers, how to be a respectable leader for my people. When my parents had passed, I was going to be able to take on the role as the royal family as such. We were really royal within our own world, within our own sort of local area. There was so much other fractions of royal families around at this time that were all kind of wanting to be strong and powerful and take over, domination, dominate, domination. So there was a lot of power play going on. So my parents were very worried that something could happen to me. Um, And so there was a lot of secrecy kept from me about the outside world, hoping that if I didn't know about it, I wouldn't be curious. But of course, I was always curious and very interested in where people sort of seem to have suddenly peered from, and where they slept and lived if they weren't sleeping and living near us. So I relatively quickly picked up that there was something else going on, which led to me being very curious. And um, I did sneak out, and to my surprise and amazement, I did see much more new things than I ever thought I would possibly. And it was amazing freedom to go out and explore what was actually out and beyond there. Felt incredibly invigorating to be out in the freedom of this new land to explore. But very quickly, I realized that. When I was a stranger, I was seen as almost a threat to the people who were living out there. So it wasn't as friendly, and there was hostility with amongst strangers and suspicion. So I actually suddenly realized that being a stranger in the outside world was actually quite dangerous, and the people felt threatened to see me, and were sort of uncomfortable. They didn't actually know who I was, and so uh, it was exciting at the same time, but I also felt like, whoa, I am so vulnerable. I'd never felt vulnerable before. So it was incredibly, it was a lot of things. And I did panic and suddenly felt really out of depth and realized, holy shoot, I am not prepared for this. I thought I was. I had no idea really what was on the other side. And my explorations of freedom suddenly fulfilled me with fear, and I'd never experienced that before. I almost was worried that I would get lost going back to where I snuck out from, and that was so overwhelming. The feeling of, for so long, wanting to get out of my my limited space. It was a very large space that we had, so don't get me wrong, it wasn't a shoebox of a property, it was quite big. But suddenly, after all this time of wanting to get out and go beyond and reach past the walls, to suddenly realizing, oh my gosh, I need to get back in straight away, and the terror of not being able to go back home was beyond was beyond. And so I had to travel back as fast as I could and hope that I could get back exactly how without getting into any damage, in any trouble. And then, of course, as I was trying to get back, and one of the workers who does come and lives outside of our property saw me and was shocked to see me out, knowing that this was going to be a very bad thing if my parents found out that I had gone out. This was a very big rule in the kingdom, in my property of my parents, was to not ever help me know about the outside world. So they were terrified to see me. I was terrified not to be able to get back home, and so together we journeyed together to get back home. And it took me quite a while to get over the confusion. First of all, my parents had sort of told me that there was no such thing beyond. So there was a lot that I had to process through, because I was so surprised. I love my parents so much and honor my parents so much and honor my teachers and my friends. And then suddenly to find out that what I had suspected all along was true, that there was life beyond our walls. I was like, part of me was devastated, part of me was really excited, part of me wanted to explore more, but part of me was really scared. So it was a very challenging time, because suddenly my life had changed and done a full flip, and I did not know how to deal with my parents, how to talk to them about it. The person that had seen me outside of the perimeter, their response was so terrifyingly shocking. Like, I realized straight away when I saw them, this was bigger and naughtier and badder and really scary for them, and it was huge to see me outside. So This was very, this is very, very, very serious, and I realized that I could have got other people into much more trouble because of my sort of not foolish ways, but my curious ways. But because I had sensed that big fear and danger of actually being out there and vulnerable, and realizing I wasn't really prepared very much to be able to tackle on the challenges of the outside world, um, I had realized quite quickly that I was ill prepared to be able to leave. And so I spent more years still processing my feelings, still learning my trainings, how to be able to be an honorable leader, to be able to rule the community that was within our facility. So it was an emotional experience, which still was on my mind for the foremost. But I also, I just knew that I was not ready. Even though I was very curious to see more and wanted to see more, I realized that there was more challenges that I was not prepared for. So I I had to grow. I had to become more mature. I wanted to be able to strengthen my body more so than normal. I did not want to be a warrior as such, but I wanted to be prepared if there was anything that was going to if I was going to be in a confrontational situation. I realized I did need to be able to have some skill sets to be able to back off people that were trying to advance on me, potentially to rob me, because I feel like I was so vulnerable when I did go out that I was potentially in harm's way um, to be robbed, and I didn't want to experience that because I did have different sort of clothes and different equipment and tools that obviously people were noticing quite quickly as soon as I left. Uh, so moving forward a few more years, and my parents are getting older, and I am realizing that the responsibility of being a leader is quite tremendous. But I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't want to rule. I also did not want to lie. And I was getting to that time where I was supposed to start considering a partner, and there was some prospects for me to start choosing. And it was not something that I was focusing on. I felt like if I got married, then I would truly be locked in. And I knew that I needed to explore more of the outside world, which I knew my parents would never agree to because they kept telling me that there was no such thing out there. I was not even allowed to discuss it anymore. They knew I was so curious, so it was the biggest taboo conversation ever. Even though it was starting to get ridiculous, that there was fruit and animals that were coming into our table that we did not grow and that we did not host and have in our property. And so, merely the fact that we were eating fruit and animals that were from not our property made it very obvious that there was something beyond um, beyond our land. So it was kind of a ridiculous notion that my parents thought that I would not twig on, but it got so the elephant in the room grew so big. I wanted to respect my parents because I could understand from some point of view the reason why they were trying to protect me. So it just became a conversation block, and that was fine. Um, I did have a few tantrums, but I also honored and respect my parents so much that it just was safer for me and safer for them, the illusion of safety for them to realize that they had succeeded in keeping me safe. And so there was a point in time where I had lost my father, and my mother was wanting me to step up and to do more duties. The death of my father shocked everyone. It was a very sudden illness, and it was very sad. It was very sad to experience that. But it also gave me more leeway to then be able to say, okay, so I'm not actually wanting to rule this land. This can be done by the other people who are governing. I actually want to take this opportunity to now explore more. I know that there is land outside, and I want to be able to explore more and see what is there. And so my mother was very disheartened and heartbroken with this because she just lost her husband and she did not want to lose her son. I had other siblings as well, but because I was the oldest, there was more responsibility on me. But my drive and thirst and passion to be able to go out and live and explore the lands was much more than what I really it was. I was addicted. I needed to go out. I knew that there was a life that was calling for me and I just needed to learn more. And even though I had everything I ever would have wanted for many lifetimes because we were so abundant, there was really no need for me to want more. But I desired to learn more and experience more, I was so curious to find out what was happening and how other people lived. So it was agreed upon that I would go and I would travel with some companions. I had to change my name. I was not allowed to use my family name, and I had to wear different clothes. And it was very exciting for me to explore that. Uh, and so I did. I went under the guise of being an ordinary person with no responsibilities, and I wanted to secretly explore. My mother had just hoped that I could have one or two of these little jaunts and journeys and kind of get it out of my system and then come home and be able to roll. However, it did not happen like that at all. And I just knew that there was so much more information out there, and I needed to see hardship. I couldn't understand how some people were behaving. I couldn't understand the mentality of lack. I couldn't understand so much that while it pained me to see all of this, it actually did um, show me how other people live and how they respond. And it was tremendous. It was so confusing, but also so interesting at the same time. It was almost a fascination to see all different ways of life. It was all new. It was confusing to see so much poverty. I couldn't understand why we had so much and they had not much. And so my first few trips out, I came to my mother and I explained to her what I was seeing, and I could not understand how come we have so much and they have so little. And she tried to say to me that this was just the way it was, and we should be grateful. This is the reason why I should explore more. This because we are lucky with what we have, and this is the reason why we need to keep these walls up and stay safe within. But that did not settle my beliefs. That did not settle how I was feeling so passionately for these other people who were looking like us. They felt like us. They spoke the same languages. They were extensions of ourselves, but yet struggling so much harder with the basics. And it really, oh, I wanted to extend our walls and put them inside our walls to protect them and to be able to provide for them. And no one was really sort of seeing why I was so compassionate for these other people, because it was kind of an us and them situation, and like we shouldn't be bothered. I shouldn't worry about them, and they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing, and we shouldn't really be bothered. But I was so deeply bothered, and I just I wanted to do everything. I wanted to save everyone, help everyone, do everything for them. uh, and it just was heartbreaking to see this, but also realizing that this is my judgment on them. They really actually had just as much freedom as I did. They had just as much enjoyment. They seemed to enjoy each other's company. There were so many beautiful things that they were still experiencing, while I was perceiving their lives much harder and with much less abundance. it was very interesting for me to see the other side and how they lived. Um, it was tremendous, and I knew that there must be a middle ground here. I realized that the way that we lived was sort of over the top, and that the way that other people lived was sort of, definitely below what people should be, just with basic needs. So it was strange to see such stark differences, and I really needed to understand the purpose of the world. I really needed to understand why was it that some people live in these different ways, and I just got to the point after I was journeying and experiencing so much different ways of life. It was all beautiful. It was always really quite fascinating and sometimes quite challenging to understand where the purpose of those people's lives were. So I still journeyed around. I was getting more adventurous and exploring more and more and more outside of our. I was traveling a lot of distances to be able to sort of sense and see how other people were doing, and it just got a lot. There was just the more I realized that it's like the next township sort of thing had, beyond that there was another township, and beyond that was another township, and beyond that was another township, and I just realized that I was never going to be able to provide for everyone. I realized that I was never going to be able to help everyone, and I had to just accept how people were living, and honor that. And I felt so profoundly, felt for them so profoundly, because I was not able to understand how how could this be? It looked so hard. Those lifetimes look so hard. And so then I really took a lot of time to ponder this, because my aides kept telling me I must go home, I must go home. My mother was starting to get older, and I was more required to be at home. I just did not find, I just could not go home. To go home to that luxury and pretend that that these other people weren't out here, that they were struggling and suffering, and I was trying to do the best I could to be able to mend things for them, and I just did the best I could. But I got to a point where I realized I traveled so much and so far, I would have to live a million lives to be able to help each individual person and each individual community, and I just, oh, it was so challenging and overwhelming, and so I seek solace in myself. I seeked having to take time out. Some of me, sometimes when I felt overwhelmed, I did want to rush home and pretend that the outside world did not live. and, and I'm ashamed of that, because I felt like that was me trying to hide. And so I resisted going home to the luxuries. And I just wanted to connect more with nature, and I wanted to really keep my mind clear and understand and figure out the purpose of people's lives and what the whole purpose of life meant. And so I focused more and more and more of my meditational time to be able to understand the purpose of life, the meaning of life, because my heart was broken, because I could see so much struggling. And so my mother kept saying I was too sensitive, and I didn't feel like it was the problem was my sensitivity. I felt like it was the problem of these people not getting enough provisions. And so I needed to be able to find within my heart, within my mind, within my soul, meaning and purpose for this. And so I escaped. I created my own little boundaries within my body and within my mind. And when I went within, I escaped my family and my home, and I escaped the reality of outside. And so the more I went within, the more I could feel solace, and the more I could sense that there was another calmness where it felt like everything was okay in the world, where there was peace. Okay, while there was challenges, the more I went in within, I realized that there was purpose for all, and I had to really take a step and a moment back, and not try to fix and heal the world, but instead of trying to fix and heal the world, I went within, and by going within, I would be able to start understanding and sensing that the reasons why a certain family or a certain person was struggling like this, when I went in and asked for the purpose of it, I kind of got a sense of my bigger connection and purpose and understood things more. What I didn't really realize at the start was I was actually tapping into the conscious collective and being able to get the answers of the purpose of life. It did take me a long time to be able to surrender into all the experiences, to be able to then ask within my meditation and to be able to get the answers for the purpose of it. And so I saw so much on my travels that some things really challenged me to be able to understand. So when I had some problem, I would then meditate and seek for the questions and answers and would find solace in that. So my lifetime was it was epic. I sort of did turn into a little bit of a myth because I did travel around. I was a man who did travel. I had the means to travel quite well. But because I was so interested and intrigued in how people lived, I would be connecting and communicating with people, and they would be interested in why I was interested in them. They were interested in me. And so I could share what I had explored in the other towns and the struggles that people had. And when I had meditated, I could see and feel what was the purpose there, the lessons. And so through my meditation, through the answers I got from the divine, I was be able to start offering my insights. I always believed that there was reason for everything. It just did not make sense for these random situations to happen. And the more I meditated, the more I realized that everything did have purpose. And it was for learning and for growing and exploring. And so while I did travel around and I did share my wisdom, and people were starting to understand and trust and sense and see what I was saying and feeling, it was common sense to them when I explained it to them. And it had this internal feeling of it was a higher perspective. And it was, I realized that giving people this wisdom of seeing things from the bigger picture perspective was actually more helpful to them than saying giving them animal grain, or fixing their properties up. It was actually helping them much more to give them a sense of the meaning of life. And it was, some people didn't really appreciate it, and that was fine. But it seemed to be this this beautiful way of me meeting amazing people in each different village, town, and being able to connect with the right appropriate people. We shared some meals together and we became friends. And they could open up their hearts and mind to me, and I could open up my hearts and mind to them. And it was a beautiful experience. I did find myself in great comfort when I was meditating, that I became more and more and more focused on being being in that peaceful state where I could send healing and love and protection to the people I had just experienced and explored with. And this was a beautiful connection, and I just became more and more and more connected to my spiritual team. I connected more to the divine source. It was incredible, and I actually became less aware of my physical ways of life. I did not need as much physical food. I became more focused on the other realms. And so I reached my enlightenment through just old age and just focusing so much on connecting with one. The reason why I was so diligent to be able to keep meditating was because I was actually trying to do a service for the people I was meeting and greeting. And it felt like such an honor. It felt like the best way for me to be able to help them was to be able to do service to them in this form. I was very happy to connect with others, and it was amazing to share such beautiful moments with people in their way of life. They didn't know my background as such. I never promoted myself as being the prince who should have then been the king of our little part of our world that we lived in. And so it was nice for people to see me as just being one human who was interested in connecting profoundly with them. So I guess I was becoming more and more enlightened as I was growing up, and my vibration was raised up higher. So I was people were magnetizing themselves to me. I was connecting with them. People were drawn to me because I was so calm and loving, and it doesn't. I'm not saying that through ego. It is like now that I'm saying I'm seeing it and reliving my life as I'm talking to you about it now. I am seeing how naturally people were drawn to me. I did spend a lot of time meditating. The energy on the planet wasn't nearly as dense as it is now, but it was still very hard. It wasn't easy to achieve enlightenment. And while we did have pure lives in terms of we weren't polluted that much, the earth wasn't polluted as much, our food was pretty pure. And our way of living was pretty pure. It was just some antisocial behavior and some greed that kind of was seeping into the communities that were starting to impact. So it was obviously not perfect, but it was perfect for them. And that was what I emotionally had to overcome. I had to see the bigger picture. And once I realized that there was purpose there, and once I realized that we have multiple lives, and that we are to try and learn and experience all, and be able to not let it break us, not let it destroy us emotionally, and to be able to continue on with a positive, a positive aspect, a positive all. See all and had the outcome of it was a positive experience because I learned from it, even if it was a painful one. Growth is always positive. So it was an interesting life. It was a good life. I'm very proud of that life. I'm very proud of how people took my teachings and shared them and how that grew. Um, it was a journey. It was a beautiful journey, of course. Now that I'm looking back from it, I saw that I had designed that life for a purpose. It was always supposed to be to enlighten many. And I am proud to say that through my experiences, it did. But no one needed to look at me to be able to get their own enlightenment. It is a journey. I was merely an example of uh, removing yourself from materialism and the comforts of home and the peer pressure of others to be able to find and work within yourself to find the true purpose of life. and to be able to be at balance and ease with the purpose of life and the journey of life, knowing that we are all connected, we are all one, and we are all journeying together, and with love and compassion to others and to yourself, you will always be able to have a positive experience. Um, I don't think that this is potentially what you were wanting to hear from me, my life journey. Uh, I had other lifetimes on Earth before, and I have not needed to come back onto Earth since that lifetime because it was successful and I learned so much in that lifetime that it had it pleased my curiosity. That is for sure. I had seen and learned a lot in that lifetime, and it definitely did please my curiosity. And now I've been able to feed uh, feed love into people's hearts, and show and encourage people through my positive essences, and help to try and enlighten others who have been calling on me. So it has been an honor, an absolute honor to be able to help humanity this way. And I was very happy, very happy, very happy. And I have been very pleased to be able to connect with you today, to be able to take you on a journey of my origin, of my life, and the purpose of that. And whew, it was enjoyable for myself to experience my life again, because I realized again that when you're going through your lives, it feels so serious and real and important. And I sort of had forgotten. Then when I was living my life, it was all those little experiences that was the magic of life. It wasn't understanding the purpose of life that was the biggest thing, really. It was experiencing all of those little moments. And that was how I could learn the bigger things. So every part of the journey of life is very important. And it's not racing to the end to be able to know everything. It is enjoying the journey every step of it. So thank you very much for your listening today, and I send you much love.